There are moments in this human experience that exist outside the ordinary flow of time, moments that do not belong to the mundane world of schedules and logic, and the small daily concerns that usually occupy the mind. And you have lived one of those moments. You have looked into someone's eyes and felt the ground of your entire existence shift beneath you, not because they were beautiful, not because they were charming, not because they said the right words at the right time, but because something ancient and wordless inside you stirred into recognition. Your soul remembers what your mind has forgotten. This was not coincidence. The universe does not operate through coincidence, though it wears that disguise well enough to fool the uninitiated. What you experienced in that moment of recognition was a cosmic appointment, written into the architecture of your soul long before this body drew its first breath, long before this lifetime began its particular unfolding. You were not two strangers meeting by accident. You were two flames separated from the same original fire, finding their way back to the source through the labyrinth of human incarnation. And now you are here. You are reading these words in the dark night of your soul, in that particular silence that only deep spiritual pain can create, where everything around you continues its normal motion, but something inside you has gone completely still, completely hollow, completely certain that something sacred is being tested. The separation you are enduring is real. The ache that lives behind your sternum is real. The way their absence echoes through every quiet moment is real. None of that is being dismissed here. None of that is being told to simply dissolve into positivity. This message finds you in the dark night precisely because the dark night is not the ending of your story. It is the deepest chapter. It is the passage through which every soul must travel before it can stand in its full radiance and receive what has always been meant for it. Write "My soul remembers" in the comments below to claim this truth and activate the remembrance that has already begun inside you. You must understand something about the nature of twin flame connection that the ordinary world has no framework for, something that romantic stories and love songs and the common vocabulary of partnership cannot adequately describe, because this connection does not follow the rules that govern ordinary relationships. It operates by a different law entirely, the law of mirrors, the law of reflection, the law of sacred confrontation. Your twin flame is not simply someone who loves you. They are someone who reflects you fully and without mercy, the way no other person on this earth can. When you stand before them, you do not see only them. You see every unresolved wound you have carried, every fragment of yourself you have hidden from the light, every shadow you have refused to examine, every fear you have dressed in the costume of strength and called it healing. This is why the connection feels so impossibly intense. It is not merely love you are experiencing. It is recognition of the self through another. And that recognition is both the most beautiful and the most terrifying experience a soul can undergo in human form. As Carl Jung understood, the shadow is not your enemy. It is the part of yourself that has not yet been brought into the light of consciousness. And until it is integrated, until you have the courage to look at it directly and call it by its true name, it will govern your choices and sabotage your intimacy without your awareness. Twin flame separation exists precisely for this purpose. It creates the necessary distance for both souls to turn inward, to stop pointing at the other as the source of their pain, and to begin the sacred and difficult work of meeting themselves. You cannot unite in wholeness while running from your own brokenness. This is not a judgment. This is the architecture of the journey. Separation is the crucible in which both souls are refined. It strips the relationship of projection and fantasy and the seductive comfort of incompleteness, seeking completion. And it demands something far more profound, the willingness to become whole before the reunion, not because of it. The universe is not punishing you with this separation. It is preparing you for something you are not yet ready to hold. Within the twin flame journey, an archetypal pattern emerges with such consistent, recognizable precision across thousands of souls walking this path that it cannot be dismissed as coincidence or individual psychology. It is something deeper. It is something written into the very grammar of this particular spiritual contract. One soul runs, one soul chases, And both believe they are the one suffering more. Both believe they are the one who understands the connection more clearly. Both believe that if the other would simply stop and be still and see what is right in front of them, everything could finally begin. The runner moves away from the intensity not because they feel nothing, but because they feel everything and have no architecture inside themselves yet to contain it. The connection triggers in them a profound disorientation, an unraveling of the carefully constructed identity they have spent years building. And the ego, which always prioritizes survival over truth, interprets this unraveling as danger. And so they create distance. They go cold. They pull away without explanation, or they offer explanations that both of you know are not the real ones, because the real one is too vast and too terrifying to speak aloud. The chaser moves toward the intensity for the same reason the runner flees it, because the connection has awakened something inside them that cannot be put back to sleep, a remembrance so deep and so certain that abandoning it feels like abandoning the truest part of themselves. The chaser believes that proximity will heal the rupture, that if they can only get close enough, the runner will finally feel safe enough to stop. And so the energetic push and pull continues, one advancing, one retreating, each locked in a role they did not consciously choose. Neither is wrong. Neither is the villain of this story. Both are responding from the deepest wounds they carry, wounds that this connection specifically arrived to illuminate. The runner fears being truly seen and found wanting. The chaser fears being truly abandoned and found unworthy. These are not incompatible fears. They are the same fear wearing two different faces, and the separation exists so that both souls can finally examine the face they wear in private, without the other present to project it upon. You have spent considerable time in the ache of their absence, turning the question over in the quietest hours, in the spaces between sleep and waking where the mind cannot maintain its usual defenses, wondering how someone who felt what you both felt could simply walk away from it, could choose distance over the extraordinary thing that existed between you. You have searched for the answer in their behavior, in the words they said and the words they withheld, in the timeline of their retreat, trying to locate the precise moment when everything shifted and understanding why it happened as it did. Here is what you must understand about where they are right now. They are not free. They have not moved on in the way the word implies liberation and lightness, and the comfortable settling into a life that no longer includes you. They are carrying the full weight of this connection in every moment, in every interaction with others that falls inexplicably flat, in every quiet moment when the mind goes still enough to feel what the ego has been desperately trying to suppress. They run not from you, but from their own reflection. You became a mirror that showed them everything they have not yet found the courage to face. Loving you means confronting everything they have hidden, the wounds that predate your meeting, the patterns of self-abandonment they have normalized, the deep interior conviction that they are not worthy of the kind of love that does not diminish them. Your connection did not create these fears. It simply illuminated them with a clarity that nothing else in their life has managed to achieve. And that illumination, however beautiful in its ultimate purpose, is experienced in the short term as a kind of unbearable exposure. They are more afraid of true intimacy than they are of loss. This sounds paradoxical until you understand the particular nature of the shadow self that this connection has activated in them. The shadow does not respond to logic. It responds to fear. And the deepest fear they carry is the fear of being fully known and ultimately rejected, which means that the very connection that could heal them is also the connection that feels most threatening to the fragile architecture of the self they have constructed for survival. They are doing shadow work whether they know it or not. Distance is not indifference. The silence is not emptiness. In the space they have created between you, something is being broken down and rebuilt, slowly, painfully, necessarily. And the soul that returns will not be the same one that ran. This pain is not random. There is no element of your current experience that arrived without purpose, without the precise intention of a universe that does not waste suffering, that does not send a soul into the fire simply to watch it burn, but always with the understanding that fire is also the oldest instrument of transformation that exists. What you are enduring has a name older than psychology, older than spiritual tradition, older than the written word. It is the dark night of the soul, and it is not a phase to be survived. It is a passage to be walked with full presence, because everything it is trying to show you will be needed for what comes next. Before your first breath in this lifetime, at the level of the soul, in that vast and luminous space that exists beyond the boundaries of individual incarnation, you made an agreement. Not out of naivety, not without understanding the weight of what it would require. You chose this journey, this particular configuration of love and separation and individual awakening, because some lessons can only be learned through this specific fire. Soul contracts are not accidents of spiritual language. They are the deepest commitments the soul makes, and they are honored even when the human self, in the midst of its pain, cannot remember why it agreed. The connection you share is written into the collective unconscious, into that vast interior ocean that Carl Jung described as the repository of all human experience, all archetypal patterns, all the wisdom that any soul has ever gathered and carried forward. Your love is not merely personal. It participates in something much larger than two individuals finding each other in the ordinary sense. It participates in the archetype of sacred reunion, in the soul's eternal drive toward wholeness through the encounter with its deepest mirror. This pain is catalyzing an awakening that would not have come any other way, stripping from you every false comfort, every borrowed identity, every belief about love that was never truly yours, until what remains is the undefended truth of who you actually are beneath the accumulated weight of conditioning and fear and incomplete healing. If this guidance has been a light in your darkness, subscribe now to receive continued support through every phase of this sacred journey, because the path ahead will require everything you are becoming, and you will not walk it alone. In the void that separation creates, in that strange suspended space where the future feels unreachable, and the past feels like a country you can no longer return to, something extraordinary is being quietly accomplished inside you. The dark night of the soul is not simply an absence of light. It is a condition of radical stripping, in which every definition you have held of yourself that was borrowed from another person, every sense of worth that was secretly conditioned upon being chosen, every fragment of identity that existed only in the warmth of their recognition, is being gently and mercilessly removed, so that what remains beneath it all can finally be seen. Codependency wears many beautiful disguises. It can look like devotion. It can look like depth of feeling. It can look like spiritual intensity. It can arrive dressed in the language of soul connection and predestiny, and it will feel absolutely indistinguishable from the real thing. Because in twin flame dynamics, it is always interwoven with the real thing, which is precisely what makes it so difficult to identify and so necessary to address. The separation is dismantling every thread of your identity that was wound around their presence, every part of you that forgot how to exist, how to breathe, how to know its own value, without their confirmation. This is the teaching of the void. Not loneliness as punishment, solitude as initiation. The mystics across every tradition speak of this passage, the withdrawal of the divine beloved, so that the seeker must discover the divine within, the removal of the outer light, so that the inner flame has no choice but to grow strong enough to illuminate the darkness from within. You are in that passage now. The outer warmth has been withdrawn, and in its absence, something that was always present but never necessary enough to notice is beginning to assert itself, that essential self, that original nature, that unbroken core that existed before this connection found you, and that will remain long after reunion has made it irrelevant to search for. You are learning to be whole alone first, not as a consolation, not as a spiritual bypass that pretends the longing is not real, but as the foundational work without which no reunion could sustain itself. Two incomplete people do not become complete by finding each other. Two whole people become something greater by choosing each other freely, without desperation, without need. There's something between you that physical distance cannot touch, that silence cannot dissolve, that the passage of time cannot erode, no matter how many seasons turn between your last contact and whatever moment is coming next. It is an energetic tether that exists at a level beneath conscious awareness, beneath the reach of the ego's decisions and the mind's attempts to sever what the soul has bound. You have felt it. You feel it still. In the inexplicable moments when you sense their emotional state without explanation, when you dream of them with a vividness and a coherence that ordinary dreams do not possess, when you think of them at an odd and specific moment and discover later that something significant was happening for them in that same instant. This is not fantasy. This is not the hopeful projection of a heart that refuses to accept absence. This is the reality of the energetic connection that exists between twin flames, a connection that operates through the collective unconscious, through those invisible channels that Jung recognized as the medium through which psychic reality flows between individuals who share profound soul resonance. Your souls communicate in ways the ego cannot block, in ways that transcend the ordinary limitations of physical separation, because the bond exists at a level that physical reality simply cannot reach. Synchronicities arrive like dispatches from a conversation that never stopped. A song that carries precise emotional significance appears in an unexpected moment. A sequence of numbers recurs with impossible frequency. A stranger says something that mirrors, word for word, a thought you had in private. These are not accidents. These are the language of the invisible tether, the universe's way of reminding you that the connection you doubt in your darkest moments is still intact, still functioning, still weaving its patterns through the fabric of your daily experience with perfect precision. Even in separation, you are bound, not by obligation or by the inability to move forward, but by something that chose this connection before either of you had the vocabulary to describe what was being chosen. The cord that connects you does not tighten with grasping. It does not slacken with distance. It simply exists, patient and luminous and utterly unimpressed by the temporary conditions of the human experience through which you are both currently moving. Reunion is inevitable, but it is not immediate. And understanding the difference between those two truths is one of the most important navigations of this entire journey. The soul knows the first truth with absolute certainty. The human self must learn to hold the second truth without being destroyed by it, must learn to exist in the space between the certainty of what is coming and the not yet of its arrival, without collapsing into desperation or detachment, without forcing and without abandoning, in that precise and sacred state of active faith that the mystics called holy waiting. Before the reunion can occur, before the outer circumstances align to bring you both into the same space with the interior readiness that the connection will require, certain completions must take place within each of you individually. They must complete their confrontation with the shadow self that your connection illuminated, must move through the terror of true intimacy at the level their soul has been avoiding, must arrive at a place where choosing you is not escape from themselves, but genuine, liberated, clear-eyed recognition of what this connection represents. And you must complete your own interior journey, releasing the version of reunion that desperation has painted, releasing the need to be chosen as the proof of your worthiness, arriving at a place where your wholeness is not contingent on their return. The reunion that is coming will not resemble the connection that preceded this separation in its energy or its dynamic, though it will carry the same irreducible soul recognition that you felt at the beginning. It will be steadier. It will be clearer. It will be built on the foundation of two people who have done the inner work, who have met their own shadows and chosen integration over avoidance, who come together not as two halves seeking completion, but as two whole flames choosing to burn together, because the light they create in combination is something neither could produce alone. The universe is preparing something you cannot yet see from within the limitations of your current vantage point. They are preparing, even now, even in the silence, even in the apparent distance. The work is happening beneath the surface of what you can observe. Divine timing is not indifferent to your pain. It is simply operating on a scale that holds the entire arc of both your journeys, not only this present and agonizing chapter. Send this to someone who is waiting for their person, someone who needs to hear that divine reunion is real and that their faith is not foolishness. There is a sacred responsibility that belongs to you in this period of separation, a role that no one else can fulfill, that cannot be delegated to hoping or waiting or the endless mental circling that the mind mistakes for productive engagement with the situation. It is the responsibility of your own becoming, and it is in the cosmic architecture of this journey, the single most powerful thing you can do to honor both yourself and the connection that brought you to this particular threshold. Stop chasing. Start becoming. These are not simply words of encouragement towards self-care in the ordinary sense. They are a description of the precise energetic shift that the universe is waiting for, the shift from outward pursuit to inward cultivation, from the frantic, contracted energy of someone trying to control an outcome to the expansive, magnetic energy of someone so deeply engaged in their own sacred transformation that they have become irresistibly whole. Your job is not to pursue. Your job is to transform. Every hour you spend chasing is an hour not spent becoming. And it is the becoming that actually moves the situation forward in the invisible dimension, where all outer circumstances are first determined. The more you release the grip on how and when and in what form the reunion arrives, the more space you create for the universe to orchestrate what you alone cannot arrange. The more you invest in your own healing, your own expansion, your own deepening relationship with the self that exists independent of their presence, the more you embody the very wholeness that this connection requires before it can sustain itself. There is a version of you that exists just beyond the completion of this work, a version that has walked through the dark night and emerged not broken and not bitter but luminous, not innocent of pain, but transformed by it into something of extraordinary depth and clarity and interior strength. That version of you is who they are, at the level of the soul, preparing themselves to meet, not the version of you that is still waiting, still contracted around the wound, still defining itself by the absence. The version of you that chose to become whole while they were finding their way back to themselves. This separation is not happening to you. It is happening for you, for both of you, in the service of something that can only be described as the soul's most sacred ambition. There are certain truths that exist beneath the reach of doubt, beneath the reach of the fear that rises in the quietest hours, beneath the reach of every logical argument that the mind constructs against the certainty the soul carries quietly and without fanfare in the deepest chamber of its knowing. These truths do not require your belief to remain true. They do not become less real in the moments when you cannot feel them. They exist in the same category as the laws that govern the physical universe, constant and indifferent to whether you are currently capable of experiencing them as constant. What is yours cannot be taken. This is one of those truths, not as consolation, not as the spiritual equivalent of a promise that requires no accountability, as the literal description of how energetic reality operates, how soul contracts function, how the universe maintains the integrity of the agreements that were made before the amnesia of incarnation settled over both of you and made the whole extraordinary arrangement seem like ordinary human heartbreak. This separation is temporary. The bond is eternal, and the path between where you are now and where the bond will be fully expressed in the physical reality you both inhabit is being cleared, prepared, made ready by forces that operate through the instrument of your own willingness to do the inner work that this chapter is asking of you. Not slowly and cruelly and without purpose, but with the precise, loving intelligence of a universe that has always known exactly what this connection was for. Hold the vision, not the desperate vision of the mind that grasps and contracts and needs the reunion to happen on a particular timeline in a particular form. The open, luminous, unattached vision of the soul that knows what has been written and trusts the hand that wrote it. See them completing their work as you are completing yours. See two flames that burn separately in the darkness of their individual becoming, finally, at the moment of fullness, drawn back together by the same law that governs every return, the law that says what originated in the same fire will always find its way home. Not two halves, desperately seeking the completion that the other holds. Two wholes, each carrying the full luminosity of an integrated soul, choosing each other in the full freedom of wholeness, creating in their union something so extraordinary that even the universe pauses in recognition of what it has accomplished through the sacred alchemy of the dark night. The promise was made before you arrived. It will be kept.